The book of Genesis from the Old Testament, the Torah. This is one of the most difficult aspects of all of the study of Erdology. AErdology, which is very old High German for earth, and Latin, of course, for the study of. Of course, there's several different characters that can be used for AE to produce a similar sound, but the point is to get close to the EA of the AETT, which is the, for lack of a better word, concept and definition. The sphere you see right here. In the beginning, God, center, created heavens above, earth below. That's a sphere. That's also a sphere is how the earth appears as it rotates around the sun in a year. Also, in a 24-hour period. A rotation and an orbit. Genesis is difficult because it takes place from 5000 BC to 2500 BC, and the 1200 years between 2500 BC and the Exodus at 1330 BC is entirely missing, minus for a few very small, very vague references in the other four books of Moses. Now, Moses wrote this to make sure that he could have significant amounts of ego and arrogance and megalomania and narcissism and a bunch of other very inappropriate ways to interact with humans, specifically his people, the Avaris, who were also renamed the Hyksos, who were renamed from whatever they were called from the descendants of Esau, the brother of Jacob, the brother who never got over the fact that he was not chosen to be Pharaoh of Egypt, the leader of the long tall house being the tabernacle system of Adam, which has a huge concept and connection to the city of Heliopolis and Noah and Noah's Ark. Those two temples, the temple of IWNW and Noah's Ark, were moved from Heliopolis to Rome by Caligula. Long drawn out story. They were moved there to honor the crucifixion, the execution of Jesus, which took place not in Levant lands 1,000 miles away. That's pure mythology. The execution of an enemy of the state takes place not in wherever the person was captured. Every single solitary enemy of the state of the Roman Empire, Roman Republic, whatever, Roma. That took place in Rome proper. The trial started in the Forum just outside the Senate chamber, and would either be carried out right in there in the Forum, or they would be taken to the Vatican Hill and then executed there, which under a different name, it was also called the Rock of Mars. Under a different name, it was called Mount Zion. Remember, in Rome, at the 0 mark, at the 30 CE mark, there was anywhere between 20 and 50 languages operating in Rome at any given point. So you have the Romans, you have the Jews, you have the Hebrews, you have the Thracians, you have the Carthaginians, you have the British, you have some Germans, you have, well, it wasn't called Germany yet, but you have people from the Gaul area, which is which would be called France in about 600 years. Well, 710, but that's beside the point. The Battle of Tours was the Frankish kings, France. The Frankish kings under the direction of Charles Martel, who was also known as the Hammer because he went into battle with a claymore, a very, very, very long two-handed sword, and his specialty was cutting his enemies in half on the battlefield. And when the Battle of Tours was over, the Muslim army that he was going up against laid decimated. Well, actually not decimated, because decimated means killing 1 out of every 10. In this case, it means the opposite. It means only leaving just a handful of survivors and killing everything else. That army was there in France. Well, it was just called France before. Just a few years before, it was still being called Gaul, under the direction and kingship of the Merovingians. The army was sent there to track down and kill Fatima and all of her descendants and all of her followers. They did not succeed in almost any way. They killed a lot of people, but they didn't kill the idea. They didn't kill the primary structure of Fatima or her followers. Fatima wasn't killed theoretically until she went back to Rome and was killed in a major battle where almost all of the major armies of the Mediterranean and Europe and Middle East gathered at Rome, well, specifically gathered outside of Rome at the Lake Nemi, which has all kinds of interesting things, at about 640, 650 AD. And they battled it out until she and her army were just about obliterated, but she had sent a significant portion of her army with her children over to Germany and then down into Constantinople in order to be able to, 1, survive, and 2, keep the ideas of what would become Parthenism alive and well. Yes, Parthenism comes from the teachings of Fatima, also comes from the teachings of St. Paul of Agrippa, which is a city that was on the outskirts province of Carthage, the Punic War, Carthage, Rome. What does this have to do with Genesis? Well, I will tell you. Genesis was formulated and put together during that time, during all those battles. Genesis formed. Now, you may say that, well, it was formulated at Babylon at 500 BC, which is true, but the understandings, the true intricacies, the secrets of the Torah, of its parent language of the Futhark, not Aramaic. That is Aramaic is not the true parent of Hebrew. That is a lie, and very easily disprovable statistically, as well as just the construction of the characters. Statistically, it can be easily proven in one simple graphic that the parent of Hebrew is the Elder Futhark, which is both a language and a calendar, which means that every single solitary one of these characters that you see in front of you right here, right now, every one of these Hebrew characters is an entire word in its parent language. Let's go for Aleph. Aleph. This is what it looks like Futhark wise. The rotation is obviously the Earth's rotation around the sun. Now, if you go into this, you will see this is the actual physical word. You have A-L-E-F. You have A-L-E-F. Now, obviously Hebrew has a connection to the Torah, but that's not important at this point in time at all. Now, if you go to one of the other characters, for instance, this one, you have the he tunnel. Down here, you have B, Bracano, E, was, T was. Means growth, astrophysics, and direction. Now, there's some disagreement between different Futhark scholars as to what these exact mean, but there's also 60 or 70 different Futhark languages, and each one of those Futhark languages comes from a different specific culture, and how each specific culture perceive language, perceive words, can be generationally different. In 1910, 1950, 1970, the word gay meant a party, a fabulous time, going to a party dressed to the nines, and which meant 9 yards of cloth, and it meant having, for a lack of a better word, a wonderful, fantastic, awesome time. A couple decades later, gay changed from having a wonderful time to being homosexual, for a large variety of reasons. In the 1960s and 70s, a phone number was a big deal. During the 80s and 90s, that the youth changed it to digits. Get your digits. In the cyber age of nowadays, phone numbers are kind of just exchange information. You have to exchange a phone number if you have one. Exchange your cell number, exchange your Facebook number, Facebook ID, your Twitter ID, your Instagram, and 20 or 30 other different forms of media. Any Yahoo videos you have posted, what's your Yahoo ID? So you have 40 or 50 different ways in which people can interact and communicate with you, and it has a variety of names. Back then it was just phone number. Previous to then, and specifically in the East Coast, you'd have phone numbers were much simpler, so you'd have all of, say, Manhattan or a portion of Manhattan was Klondike, something, and 4 or 5 numbers after that, so that it identified where you were. Most small cities and small areas, they have, for instance, one of my hometowns, Socorro, New Mexico, up until about 30 years ago, all the exchanges in the city were all 835. 835, and then give 4 numbers, because that was your individual 4 numbers. Then it went to your house. But 10 years later, they changed it to 2 numbers, 835 and 838. And now I have no idea what it is, because when cell phones do not pay attention to that kind of area, that kind of 3-digit number first before the 4. So you have a bunch of codes and such. Now, you also have this other added interesting information, because each of the 8 calendars in Erdology has its own sequence of dates, has its own sequence of months and days. So you have, BET for the Yule calendar, the midwinter calendar, is August 29th to September 12th. E is, since BE is September 13th through the 28th. Now remember, all the months in a Futhark calendar, in the T calendar, are 15 days minus 5 that are 16 days, and on every fourth year minus every few centuries, you have a sixth year that has a sixth month that has 16 days, which would be around February 2nd. That was included into the Pope Gregory XIII's calendar, which became the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar you're used to. But for the February 2nd calendar, this is October 13th through the 27th. October 28th through November 12th, September 28th through October 2nd. So you have a considerable amount of things going on. You also have six other specific fixed point dates to work with. That also does not count the 24-hour day, where each one of those fixed points has a day equivalent. Mid-winter, midnight. Midsummer, midday, and the other six fill in appropriately. Which means that each one of those, BET, ALEF, Shin, and so forth, Shin, here we go with Shin, a couple different versions of Shin. Well, incorrect. Link is incorrect, but it's still the same point. You have T, S, A, D, E, H. And here's what they mean. Direction, knowledge, communication, day, astrophysics, past. You have midwinter, and you have August and July and January and November and September and April. Have February 2nd. You have Easter. You have these specific dates. You have Beltane, May 1st. Have Midsummer and its dates. You have August, its dates. You have September and its dates. And you have October 31st, Halloween, Samhain. Samhain is a very difficult situation because it means three things. One, it means the specific calendar. It also means the battle of the Samhain War. It also means, well, this is what the spelling, meaning, name of the city of Rome was before 753 BC. Before Romulus was born, the city had been a thriving capital for thousands of years, known as the City of Seven, S-A-M-H-A-I-N, in Gaelic pronounced S-E-V-E-N, Seven, the City of Seven Hills, and then inside the gates were 7 hills, Palatine Hill and the 6 others. So you have the City of Seven, and you have the Seven War, and you have this specific fixed point. The problem is that Erdology was a key fixture in all 3 of them. It's one of the 7 in this science. The books of this science were a key aspect to the entire situation and function of the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War, and that war, the 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War, which is exactly the same war, saw the foundation of the name change of one of the Prussian spy organizations, Prussian Empire spy organization. They name changed from whatever they were called previous to Freikorps, F-R-E-I-K-O-R-P. Now, something extraordinarily important is that The Free Corps operated in America and in Europe fairly freely and all over the place. They were a spy organization, which means that wherever information that was needed necessary for a spy organization to operate, they were. And Manhattan would be fairly high on the list of places that they would need to have an operating office. London would be another place. Edinburgh, another place. Leipzig, Heidelberg, Rome. They need to operate all over the place to gather information. In the days before, in the centuries before satellites and telecommunications, you had to have boots on the ground to be able to figure out what was going on there. Now, occasionally, spies get caught, and when spies get caught, the organization they belong to. Now, most of the primary spies that are caught are either shipped back home or they're executed for being spies. Primarily the latter, not the former. But the organization itself name changes. They stopped going by in Manhattan, they stopped going by the name Free Corps and started going by the name of Tammany Hall. Not because that was the name they chose, but because that was a place, a pub, a bar, a establishment that they could rent out the back part, the hall of of Tammany Bar. And as they met there, the organization just took on the name of the bar instead of taking on an actual physical name, or they wanted to step away from their old name, and they just started it just after several decades, 1770 up to and through 1810. They took on the name Tammany Hall because that was the easiest way that's what they were known by for like 50 years. Two generations knew them only because they met in Tammany Hall regularly. When they moved out of Tammany Hall, they built their own building in Manhattan, and they named it Tammany Hall because that was the easiest. That's not, however, their chosen name. Their chosen name was Free Corps from the Prussian Empire. From the moment they seized power in Manhattan, Martin Scorsese did a film about this. The film he made about this subject starred Bill the Butcher. It starred Leonardo DiCaprio and Cameron Diaz and a couple of other people. Well, a couple dozen other people, big names. That Coming to America, I think. No, wrong name. That film, The Gangs of New York. That's it. The Gangs of New York. That film was not about how Tammany Hall formulated, but how Tammany Hall continued to regain, and whenever it was challenged, it regained power. And it was challenged and attacked, and it regained power and regained power. And it didn't matter, the leaders, in this case, Bill the Butcher, it doesn't matter that he was killed in battle, fictionally or otherwise. The person out there on the front lines, like Adolf, also a card-carrying member of the Free Corps, which was what the Tammany Hall renamed itself from. If you did anything in real estate in Manhattan from 1770 to present, you had to be anything big, not just small, not just a small residential place, but if you made your money off of Tammany Hall, if you made your money off of Manhattan real estate and the surrounding boroughs, if you made your money off of, if you owned several buildings or owned that kind of stuff, including some aspects up until even recently, but absolutely before 1980, you absolutely positively had to be a card-carrying member of Tammany Hall, which means you were a card-carrying member of the Free Corps, which means that you were first and foremost loyal to the Prussian Empire, not America. Which leads up an entirely interesting sequence of events. The Prussian Empire hates this information with a passion that they have demonstrated daily for the last 800 years without a stop. They have done amazing amounts of things about every one of these links work. They have done amazing amounts of work to find this information and destroy it, including the Holocaust. Because the Freikorps, Munich branch of the Freikorps, name changed to hide from officials, of course. They found a nice little, no big deal political organization that was founded to protect a think tank that had been tired of being outlawed every couple of months as a fundraiser for the government in the local area. They got the think tank got tired of being outlawed. So they created a political party to protect them from being outlawed. That political party was called the DAP. The DAP was in existence for, give or take, roughly about 13, 14 months. 18, depending on what paperwork you look at and what situation you look at. But the DAP was a direct result of the Freikorps. Of the Thule Society. And the Thule Society is just one name of 1,000 names that the society started. I think the think tank started in about 1806 when the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire collapsed and the libraries were opened up to scholars. Well, this think tank formed, as well as 1,000 other think tanks that both formed and collapsed and merged and split apart, and then re-merged and split apart, and were outlawed, and so on and so forth for the next century and 10 years. The Thule Society's direction was to recreate as close as humanly possible what the tabernacle system of Adam was. The tabernacle system of Adam, Abraham hated it. No, sorry, not Abraham. Moses hated the tabernacle system of Adam to the base of his being. Why? Because he could never enter it and control it. He could never turn the tabernacle system of Adam into a weapon to challenge all humans and eventually challenge God for supremacy of heaven. That's not going to happen, so all of the Avaris, the Hyksos, the Dorians, and the ECU, having the same philosophy as Terah, who was killed at the tabernacles at the Tower of Babel, otherwise known as the Eridu Ziggurat, they were all very, very angry, and they all hated the fact that the information in this, every one of those links work, which means that every one of those links proves the mathematics that the parent of Hebrew is the Elder Futhark, and the Elder Futhark has a very complicated and layered language to it. Also, there's a map of time, a very, very complicated map of time built into each one of those links. Now, this is only the basics. This is just individual letters, individual characters that are linked, that have the structure behind them. The words are not yet done because the words are extraordinarily complicated in order to be able to not only to determine the mapping, but extraordinarily complicated to, in comparison to your life and how you exist and how you live, what's going on with you. This map is completely true. This hidden secrets is completely accurate. The hidden language is there, completely proven. This stuff is entirely accurate. This is Midsummer is the calendar of is one calendar. There's also 8 other calendars. 7 other calendars. Well, the 8th calendar is, of course, your birthday, and you create your birthday calendar very easily. All you have to do is take your birth date, count 8 days beforehand. That's your month. Your month starts 8 days before you're born. That's your first month. 23 count. It's 15 days unless it is one of the 5 high holy days, or you were born during one of the 6th holy day. And your month is 15 days. If not, then it's 16 days, and it's very easy. That's all the math. All the equations are online, easy to find. And then count forward for 23 to 4 more months, 15 days. There's your own personal calendar. As you translate your own personal calendar, all those numbers become letters. All those letters become intersected with these other fixed point calendars, and the solstices and equinoxes of what you're looking at. And the solstices and equinoxes of what you're looking at become the story of your life, hidden in the sequence and the patterns and the identification markers of time.